Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be working on TDSR. That doesn't sound right. Affectionately calling this Jeep TJ I bought in November of 2020. Previously posted about some weird noises it makes in the rear end. Investigation of that, trying to figure out what it is. When I did the rear brakes, I discovered that it looks like the right hand axle seal is leaking. Shoes are covered in oil and it's completely filthy in here, and all the hardware is present, which is a surprise to me. Obviously the shoes need to be replaced. I don't know when this ever had a brake job. But when I spin the hub, I know you can't hear it, but I can feel vibrations in here, and based on the oil that's in here, my guess is that the bearings and seal on this axle need to be replaced. And that might be the source of the noise I'm hearing in the back end. It could be bad bearings. And when I did some testing, it doesn't sound like it's a gear problem. It sounds like it's probably a wheel bearing problem. So I actually put the Jeep up on jack stands and went and drove it up to 20, 30, 35 miles an hour, and the noise that I've been hearing is gone. So here's a video of that test. So today I'm going to get it back up on jack stands, going to pull the differential cover off, go through the process of releasing the two C clips on the axles, pulling the axles out, and replacing the rear axle bearings on both the driver's side and the passenger side. Hopefully the new bearing and seals will clear up the problem and make it sound a whole lot better. We'll go through that process and see how it goes. I've previously made a video on replacing the diff fluid in this differential. It looked really gross when it came out, so it'll be interesting to see how it looks now. Hopefully it's not as gross, at least. So I'm gonna go ahead and, also I've got the lube locker gasket on here now, so my plan is to get that off and reuse it, because that's what it's supposed to be good for. So we'll have to see how that goes too. Looking at the color of the lube coming out and the lack of metal fragments. There's no magnet in the diff cover, but everything looks nice and clean, so that's reassuring. Okay, so the way this is supposed to work is that there is a locking bolt in the side of the gear here, carrier maybe. It uses a 12-point quarter-inch socket or wrench. So you remove this retaining bolt. Then this larger bolt slides out. Once this bolt is out, then you can push the axles in, and there's a C-clip on each axle, and that's what holds the axle into the differential. So you slide the axle in, the clip comes out or falls out, then you can pull the axle out. So we'll see how that goes. Here's what that bolt looks like, and you could probably tell it would have been easier if I had a quarter-inch 12-point wrench instead of using a socket, but got it out.
That's what those little C-clips look like. That's from the passenger side axle. With the C-clips out, the axle should pull straight out, no problem, easy peasy. We'll see how that goes. Yep, piece of cake. The driver's side axle, just taking a look. I don't see any big pits or gouges, so that's good. And then looking here, it's just it's a big mess. So we'll get this all fixed. It gives you a great opportunity to look at your rear brake hardware and just make sure that everything's where it's supposed to be. So some of the things are obvious, like the retainer springs, they all have to be there. But take a look at your adjustment configuration. Make sure that it's properly sitting underneath the star wheel. You want to make sure that the bump is facing up towards the cylinder. Take a look at this spring. It's hard to see, but there's actually a notch in the shoe where the top of the spring rests. And then you want to make sure that the notch in this bar is sitting in the notch of the shoe. On the other side, the notch on this side of the bar is wider because the parking brake lever and the shoe both have to fit in there. So make sure that both of those pieces are sitting inside the notch of the bar. Make sure that your parking brake cable is going around and not caught behind this guide. And you know, it's pretty easy to take these springs off and adjust everything, but if your brakes are not set up properly, you could have a lot of problems. So it's well worth the time to do the inspection and make sure that everything is set up properly. Okay, I've got the new seal, and if I put it up against this old one, it's about the right size. So just visually looking to make sure I got the right parts. And then the same with the bearing. It looks to be the right size. I'll put a link in the description for the parts that I'm using. Also borrowed from AutoZone, seal and bearing puller with slide hammer. According to the service manual, you can take out the seal and the bearing all at once. We'll have to see if that actually happens. Probably not, so I'll have to take the seal out first, but we'll give it a shot. Okay, so service manual is full of crap because there's no way you get it out of there with a slide hammer. I took pliers, straight jaw pliers, and peeled up the flange all the way around, trying to pull it out. That wasn't working either. So then I remembered one video I saw where a person used claw hammer to pull it out, and I think that's gonna work. I already tried a little bit and got the actual seal out, so now I just gotta get the rest of the actual material out. So I'll set you back up here. We'll see how that goes. Spring. There we go. So this is what's left of the seal, which I'm sure is original. because Jeep owner was not very interested in maintenance. So yikes. Now I'll do the slide hammer and get the seal out, get the bearings out. Piece of cake. Okay, so the next step is going to be just to clean everything out really good, so you got a good seal environment. There's some remnants of the old seal in here, so it's going to take some time to clean it up really well. Just to point some things out to you when you reinstall everything. So this back lip is what the bearing seats against, and this middle lip is what the seal sits against. So when you drive the seal, and then when you drive the bearing in and then the seal in, you're gonna just drive them in until it's fully seated up against these two rests, these two shoulders. And it should go pretty smoothly once you get it all cleaned up. So I'm gonna clean up the surface here, and looking inside the bore, I don't see any scoring or anything, so I think we're in good shape. So I rented a seal, bearing and seal driver from AutoZone, and I've got my new bearing, got the lettering, it's facing out towards me. Just gonna set it in there and then start driving away. That's seated. Okay, I'm gonna put some lube in the bearing. So there's a spring inside here that you want to make sure is actually there and seated before you press in the seal. So set this in. When you put the axle back in, you want to be really careful that the splines don't grab on the seal lip. You want to make sure that the seal lip stays up against the axle all the way across. It doesn't get bent over or folded over. And then it's the far end of the axle is going to have to fit into some splines on in the differential. So you're going to have to do some wiggling to get that all to fit in. let's do that. Okay, so I did also use some fine grit sandpaper on the surface of the axle that spins on the bearings to get that nice and smooth and clean. So now I'll go put the C-clip into this axle and we'll do it again on the other side. It's as simple as putting the C-clip on the axle and then pushing the axle back out. And now that one is in place. While I'm down here, just feeling around, no shims came loose while I was banging on it, so that's good. I don't see anything, so we're so far so good. Now we're gonna go do the exact same thing on the other side and go from there. So this is what my axle looks like, and I don't know that that is normal. So do I need to replace this axle? I'm not sure. Probably, because it's just how this thing goes. That doesn't sound right. Strikes again. Well, everything looks good. C-clips are in, the pin is in, tightened down. Axles are all good. A little bit worried about the passenger side axle. And I guess we'll just have to see how it goes. But I'm guessing that maybe I'm just being negative, but I'm guessing that the noise is still there because it's probably the axle. But put the cover back on and torque it all down. Fill it up with oil, and then take it for a test drive. You guys have seen that process before, so I'm not going to bore you with it. Ready to go for a test drive. So I'm putting you in the back of the Jeep, just like when I made the first recording. We'll see if the sound is any different, or and hopefully the bearings were the problem. If not, I'm going to guess that it's the right side axle that is next. But let's go find out. That we survived the test drive. Axle didn't come off, didn't leave a big puddle behind the diff, so we'll have to make sure it's still not leaking, but at least nothing major happened. But TDSR still lives up to its name. That doesn't sound right. As you heard, that sound is still there, so unfortunately I don't think it was the wheel bearings, or, well, the seal obviously wouldn't make noise, but the bearings. My guess now is it's the right side axle. So I'll have to look at getting a new axle and go through that process. But that'll just be one more video that I can make. Thanks for coming along on this journey. If nothing else, we learned how to replace bearings, and we'll keep working on it.
and see if we can get that noise eventually and maybe work towards getting a new name for this Jeep. But until next time, thanks for watching. I'd like you to consider subscribing to the channel. Always trying to get more subscribers and build the channel. Like the video, but if you have questions or comments, drop those in the comment section. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.